Class, in this video we will study about thrust, which is also called force, the SI unit of thrust, and example relating to thrust. Now before starting thrust, we will understand force. Then you will be much clear about thrust. Suppose that when I apply force on this pen from right hand side, it will move towards right hand side, and when I apply force on this pen from left hand side, it will move towards left hand side. Or if we compress a box, it will change its size or shape. If we compress a toothpaste, it will also change its size and shape. So force can be applied in any direction and in any amount. But what is the difference between force and thrust? Why force is called thrust? This is what we are going to learn in this video. Now, whenever we apply force from top to the plane surface, this force is named as thrust. To be very clear, we can say that whenever we apply force on any body perpendicularly or normally to the surface, plane surface, that force is termed as thrust. So we can understand the definition of thrust as: when force is applied on a surface normally or perpendicularly, this is called thrust. Because thrust and force is same, so SI unit of thrust is Newton, because it is same as that of force. So SI unit of thrust is Newton, and SI unit of weight is also Newton, because weight is also nothing but force. Now there are some examples from which you can be clear about thrust. Suppose that when a boy is standing on a sand and when a boy is lying down on a sand. The second example is striking hammer from the flat end and striking hammer on the sharp end of the nail. Now we are going to understand these two examples properly. Students, whenever a boy standing on the sand or you can experience it by yourself also, whenever you stand on a sand, your legs goes deep down the sand, your legs penetrates in the sand. But when you lie down on the sand, this is the surface of the sand. When you lie down on the sand, you can see your body penetrates less than the body which penetrates while standing on the sand. So this is the example of thrust applying more on this situation, and thrust will be less in this situation, because thrust always acts normally to the surface. Normally means perpendicularly, which makes the shape of L in this way. Thrust always acts normally, or it acts vertically, you can say, straight on the surface of the body, and that is why it is termed as thrust. So body penetrates much into the sand when you stand on the sand, and body penetrates less on the sand when you lie down on the sand, because the area here is increased, and area here, when you stand here, the area is less. We will understand this in our pressure part more clearly. The next example is when you hammer on the flattened surface of the nail, what you observe that this is your wooden plate, when you hammer on this wooden plate from the flat end of this nail, what you see that this nail penetrates into this wooden plate. It goes down this wooden plate. But if you invert this nail, and then you hammer it, this is your wooden plate again. Now if you hammer it from here, strike it from here, this is your hammer, and you strike your hammer on this sharp end, your nail will not penetrate in this wooden plate, because here the area is increased, so thrust will be less in this situation. Thrust is less. And here you can see thrust is more. So the reason is this nail goes deep down this wooden plate, and when you strike your hammer on the sharp end, this nail will not go inside the wooden plate. These examples are also given in your book, which you can read it from there. This was the explanation of the example of thrust. Now we can again sum up the thing and recap it once again. So thrust is when force is applied on a surface normally or perpendicularly, it is called thrust. So thrust is nothing but it is a force which acts normally to the body. Next is SI unit of thrust is Newton, because thrust is nothing but force, so the SI unit is also is same as that of force, which is Newton. An example of thrust is boy standing on the sand and boy lying down on the sand, striking of hammer from the flat end and striking of hammer from the sharp end of the nail.